of the new Harry Potter, basically, because you have elements of going to a special boarding school, and when you have a particular talent, and the talent that Blaze Trails has, that's his name, is he is gay, but yet he comes from a community that has wanted to suppress that, and that has made it out like that's bad. But then at this school, it turns out that everyone is welcomed and included, and it's actually a power. And yes, the sirens, there are actual sirens that have this power over people through their voice in the real world. And so it's so plausible. It's like, it's completely realistic, but there's also maybe not. It's a fantasy, but very much grounded in the real world. And it was just really a fast-paced read, and I don't want to reveal too much because I want you to experience reading it, but I'm excited that there's 2 books in the series so far, hopefully more to come. And one of his motivations to writing is that he did face bullying as a teen, and so he wanted to provide a book for the underdogs out there, and something that would help us, because some of us were bullied as well in high school or whenever, and the main character is going into 9th grade, right, and that's a time where you're really at risk of being mistreated. And I feel like he really achieved a lot with these books, and I'm so glad that he got to do school visits yesterday, and he's here in the community. Now, after the presentation, there will be still some books, but you sold out, Cody. There's some books over in the Storybook Garden sale if you want to get copies, but you can also buy them online later from Amazon. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's lots of time for you to ask questions as well, and comments that you want to make about your own writing and about how to become a person who writes and publishes an entire novel. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to sit down, but I'm going to ask the first question, and then I'm going to ask them to each read from their books. But my question is just going to be, how did you get started writing?
Okay. Do I need the microphone, or are y'all good? Okay. So I've been writing since I was in elementary school. We had a short story contest when I was like 4th, 5th grade, and it was 2 people in your class, and we just started writing this crazy sci-fi story, and I never stopped. I've been reading. I was reading since I could read. Since I was little, my favorite place to go was the library, and so just kept on going and going. And once I got a little older, I started writing more short stories, things a little longer. As I got into middle school, continued through high school. As I went to college, I'm also a musician, so I've got the artistic side of me and I've got the STEM side of me. I'm a computer, my major was in math with a minor in computer science, so I'm a computer geek. I'm an Oracle database administrator. I worked for Dell for a long time, and I work for General Motors on their IT division, but I never let that artistic part of me go. I played in mariachis, I played in different bands with my brother through college. Then I stopped for a long time until a few years ago. We picked up an 80s band, and we're playing all over Austin and San Antonio and even Corpus Christi now. But when I was going to college, I started taking classes, extra classes I wasn't an English major, but I was 6 hours away from being one, a minor, but I took extra classes. I went to Austin and I took a class at the local community college on writing, creative writing, writing screenplays, and it was during that process where I would write short stories and poetry, and I got something small published in a publication in Austin for poetry, but I realized when I was reading, I talk too dang much as it is, so I write just as much as I talk. So I realized my forte was novels when I had enough material. And so that's where it continued, didn't stop, and I read it still almost every single day. Sometimes they're craft books, and sometimes they're books that I just want to read. I grew up on Stephen King and Anne Rice, Neil Gaiman. Wrinkle in Time was my favorite book when I was, in elementary, one of my favorite books, and now it's To Kill a Mockingbird is my all-time favorite book. Well, that's the only one I've read like at least 4 times. And but I love the sci-fi fantasy genre, I love horror, I love supernatural, so it's kind of a mix of it, and that is how I got into it, and why I'm still doing it now. Back to you, Cody.
Thanks, Manuel. That is actually really interesting. You don't know this, and I didn't know that about you. I actually have degrees in math and computer science.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, and I'm in web development. So that was actually really crazy to hear. So, So getting into writing. Well, first, I didn't write a lot when I was younger, and I mentioned this yesterday at one of the school visits because being gay in the Panhandle of Texas was not the friendliest of places. And so a lot of that foo-foo-ness is kind of suppressed. And so I played basketball and sports, and it was kind of what you're expected to do. But once I started coming out, I was like, you know, I can kind of let my creative flag fly along with my pride flag, and that's really super fun. And so I was actually doing theater at the time, and I wasn't getting cast in a lot of roles, and there was one reason for that. I'm bad. I'm a really terrible actor. You know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and that's something that I'm really bad at. And so I was finally like, you know what? Like, if no one's gonna cast me, I'm gonna write my own play, and I'm gonna cast myself in this play. And so I sat down and actually wrote a full-length stage play about 4 guys who basically want to relive their childhood summer vacation. So they get rid of everything for 2 weeks and they play in the sandbox and they just goof off. And I wrote that, and during the process I was like, you know what? I'm terrible. I'm a terrible actor, but this was really fun, and I had the best time writing this, and I was like, this is a real way to kind of express yourself, because I think with creativity, it's really expressing yourself in a way to make it, you know, where people can kind of take that in and maybe affect them in some way. And so I was like, I like this a lot more, and so I was like, I have ideas, and so I started writing, and that's whenever I got into the point where I was like, you know what, I want to write something for younger me, because it was very lonely growing up in a panhandle where being gay was not talked about. It wasn't bullied, it was taboo, it's not discussed, so you're super lonely. And I knew I wanted to write a book for younger me. And so I sat there thinking about what I could possibly write. And that was, at first I was like, well, I could do one of those gay diary of a wimpy kid kind of things. And I was like, well, then it would be chapter 1, I'm gay. Chapter 2, and I had nothing. Like, it was literally a 1-page book. And then finally I was like, well, you know what, I love Harry Potter. If you're talking about fantasy influences, Harry Potter meant so much to me. And I was like, I would love to have this special school that I could have gone to as a kid for gay kids. And so I was like, all right, there's the idea, along with this idea of this siren who can control people. So yeah, so that's where that idea came through in writing.